This video contains spoilers for The Past Within. Before watching, consider checking out the game itself, or at least watch my playthrough. Welcome everyone alive to my nest. Here's Now Here, and we continue our deep dive into the story and theories of Rusty Lake. As you may already get, I'll talk about The Past Within, the experiment of an unprecedented scale having resulted in just as unprecedentedly prolonged development. That will be the plot that I'm recapping today, without missing a single important detail, so you more easily understand the theories to follow in the future. Let's start from the beginning. As I have said countless times in my previous videos, The Past Within is a game exclusively for 2 players, and it makes that clear right away. You and your partner you're meant to verbally exchange hints with are offered to choose different sides of the story. One of you is to choose the future, and the other one the past. And also pick a common insect, either a butterfly or a bee. Both have directly affected Albert's life in the past. The choice of insect defines some minor details. I'll cover the most interesting ones along the way, as well as the puzzle solutions. This was done so each of the players could enjoy both the past and the future like the first time. So, let the game begin. 1926. The past. We find Albert Vanderboom where we left him in Roots, in a coffin. In his long by the Vanderboom standards life, he learned many secrets of the universe and did many tremendous things. The line on his forehead vividly reminds us of the sacrifice he made. Rose, his 17-year-old daughter raised from a test tube, reads his final will. January 1926. For reference, Albert died later that fall. My dear daughter Rose, if you find this letter, I'm no longer part of this world. Although there is hope. Over the last couple of months, I have been working on a device to establish contact with a trustworthy person in the future. Be aware, the room you are in now may be affected by this person. Please open this box and await further instructions. Your loving father, Albert. So, who is this trustworthy person? Actually, it's simple. This is Rose about 60 years later. Years pass, but she still wears black. Aged into a scientist, probably working for the White Dawn known for dealing with memory cubes, according to the lore, the future Rose turns on a device containing one of such cubes in order to establish a connection with her past self. So, we have a 3D future outside the device, with the 2D past inside it. Yeah, it's physically there. And pretty quickly we realize that the room of the past is literally connected to the device. It will pump out the smoke, beat the beats, let you play chess, and even have a staring contest through a peephole. From the plot viewpoint, the first chapter comes down to 3 tasks. The task number 1 is to collect samples of bone, flesh, and blood of the deceased. And holy crow, how disgusting it is. That exhalation when you open his mouth, the creaking of his loose little teeth, the squelching of a severed ear, and picking his nose until it bleeds. And you know, no matter what you say, but for such moments, we actually love Rusty Lake. Along the way, we stumble upon some of Albert's personal things. The mask and his diary. And what does it mean? Exactly. More lore. As it turned out, the snow mask wasn't Albert's madness, as I thought so far. It actually summoned snow for real. And here that could be seen from different points of view. Well, now I'm taking Rusty Lake a little more literally. Speaking of the diary, unfortunately, we did not get the promised answer to the question what made Albert such a killer if not bees. Instead, we have to be happy just with several selected passages from his past and some plans for the future. But believe me, there are interesting things to read in both parts nevertheless. If you pick the butterfly in the beginning, the diary will start with the following passage. I once caught a butterfly as a child. It was mine, but my sister stole it. The bee will give you a continuation. I was attacked by bees. My siblings laughed at me. Perhaps that's only how Albert remembered things. But personally, I'm inclined to believe it. More than Roots. Partially because of the photo. So it turns out that back then, in the garden, it wasn't Albert who started the fight, as I thought so far. I guess that makes him more innocent. And his downfall even more dramatic. The next two passages are dedicated to Albert's beloved women, Ida, who broke his heart, and his daughter Rose, whose creation he considered the greatest achievement of his. Depending on the selected insect, we can find a photo of one of them in his pocket, close to his heart. This confirms my assumption that he, despite his monstrosity, truly loved Rose. Also still loved Ida, despite the fact that he personally murdered her. The developers seemingly continue to whitewash Albert. The last passages. I have been working on the cubicle device to establish connection with the future. I know that when I lose a game of chess, my first life will end. But my dark soul will live on into the future, waiting for resurrection. According to them, the game of chess with Frank, a child of Albert's sister he kept in a well for decades, must have been more or less real as well. Besides the mask and the diary, we get another surprise. The second task of the first chapter is Albert's corrupted soul that we need to send into the future. But first, we need to create it. That's the first stage of the so-called power search program the future Rose launches on her device. Judging by the instructions on its screen, putting coins on the eyes of the deceased, according to the ancient Greek tradition to pay for a trip across the Styx, could be enough for his dark soul appearance. Also important to note that it appears in the future for the first time as well. It starts gradually phasing in and out the reality inside a water tank in the background. As we often see, the presence of a dark soul like that distorts the world. The room in the past becomes darker, gets covered in blood. The fire changes to blue, and ominous music starts playing. Albert himself starts goofing around, and I'm not sure if it looks more spooky or funny. Along the way he says that the time has almost come, and Rose must help him. The final task and the last surprise is the creation of a golden cube. In order to do that, the future Rose finalizes the running program and finally causes a power surge in the cubicle device, which also physically manifests itself in the past in a form of sparkles. Don't forget, it's still literally located inside the sparkling computer. Albert catches a discharge with his bare hands, and a golden cube is obtained. The created golden cube contains the future. And not some future, but quite a specific one. Where Elder Rose turns on a cubicle device and helps a younger version of herself in the past, you already know where I'm going to create a golden cube with the future inside it. Isn't your mind blown yet? Long story short, Rose and Albert somehow took the future with them inside and put it inside their box. So at the same time, they are inside the cube and outside it. And the very same can be said about the Elder Rose too. The golden cube is placed inside the cubicle device prototype, the one created personally by Albert, to create a new connection with the future, accompanied by a bright flash. Chapter 2. The players switch roles, and so do their characters. Now we have a 3D past outside, with a 2D future inside it. Young Rose has collected bone, flesh and blood, and now it's the Elder One's turn to do something with them. But first, Albert himself is required. Since the connection is now established through a prototype, the cubicle computer has no use anymore, and the future Rose takes the cube out of it. She inserts it into the resurrection tank, the cube powers it up, and Albert's soul appears again, but this time it's indefinitely. As a result, the future Rose has someone to revive now. The past Rose, watching her father go wild from time to time somewhere nearby, inserts his samples inside the golden cube. Remarkably, the relative size of the matter is conserved. A small tooth, placed in a small cube, feels big when transferred inside. A small bottle of blood, after being pumped in, seems like gallons or liters. And a cute wee insect, butterfly or a bee, depending on the choice at the beginning, turns into a chaos machine that obliterates the lab to hell. And in fact, thanks to this phenomenon, a small quantity of substances is enough to recreate a whole new body. Albert comes back to life still himself, still with scars, but rejuvenated. He finds clothes prepared for him in advance, and finally speaks to us for the first time.
It's you, my daughter. It seems much time has passed.
And gosh, how awesome does he sound! Since late 2015, most of the characters have been voiced by good old Bob Rafferty. Because of this, many characters sound more or less the same, with a few exceptions like Owl. And Albert, let's say with him the actor outdid himself. This timbre, these intonations, here you listen and you understand. This is really Albert. A mad genius. And definitely not, let's say, Crow or Bob, whose voices are effectively indistinguishable. So yeah, with his awesome voice, Albert informs us that this is not it yet. That they're still trapped inside the cubes they have created. But there's the way out. Shortly after the insect got out of the cube, re-entering the past, and in some inexplicable way having charged the device by dissolving in it, we find Albert's masks in the future in his old stuff. We have already seen the snow mask, it needs no introduction. Wearing the deer skull, like the time he killed his brother and his brother's wife Ida, whom he loved unrequitedly, causes blood to manifest. And while wearing a music mask, similar to the one worn by the Phantom of the Opera, the same melody from Roots Albert played on tuba begins to play in the background. Each mask gives a hint towards one of the 3 gems hidden in the past. Throughout the series, gems like these are actively used in magical rituals and artifacts. With each new gem placed into a figurine attached to the prototype device, the corrupted Albert comes closer and closer to it. When all 3 gems are in the right sockets, they begin to deliver their power, charging the golden cube with the future inside. It's released from the device, and Albert's soul grabs it. In the future, Rose gives the black cube with the past to already living Albert. Both Alberts tell their Roses that the past is in the future and the future is in the past, that there is a way out of this trap, to the lake, where he and Rose belong. His words. Both Roses have just to touch their respective cubes at the same time. So they enter the cubes, switching places. Then immediately go deeper, repeating the swap. Then even deeper. Further. Further. Faster. Even faster. The boundaries blur. The places merge into one. And the Roses reach the lake and its dead forest. The loop is broken, the gap is filled. The lake is a place where time does not exist. The future and the past merge together. Both Roses are the same person. Now they belong to the lake, where their soul blossoms. Physically becomes a tree and blossoms. Either with pink flowers as a reference to seasons, or with white ones as a reference to birthday, depending on the selected insect. Phew. Looks like I owe you an explanation. But unfortunately our time is up, and I'm leaving theories alongside my opinion about the game for the future videos. Heroes Now here, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you want to discuss the lore of Rusty Lake, you are welcome in the comment section. You can also find me on Rusty Lake subreddit and Discord. Thanks for watching, and remember, question everything in Rusty Lake.